does it make sense for me in the longer term to build up a wider set of experiences and skills and opportunities and networks by working across multiple businesses, or does it make more sense for me to work in one job with one boss with with one team?
Sujata Rastogi, thank you for joining me on 20 Minute Leaders. I'm so happy that you're here.
Hi, Michael. Nice to see you. Thanks for having me on your show.
All the way from London, correct?
That's right. Yes.
London, Tel Aviv. I just love how, in the middle of COVID and everything, I still have the opportunity to talk to people all around the world. But I'd love to start with your journey, even before we get to You've Got This and all the different things you're doing now with, the future of work. What I'd love to hear a little bit is about your different experiences, because you've lived all across the US, Europe, Asia, right? Tell me a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, that's right. So prior to this, I was working in financial services. So I was working with the multinational banks and I moved around quite a bit. So I started off in London, I went to New York. That was during the financial crisis. And then over to Singapore in the financial recovery. And then back to London, to Europe. I went to business school. And then did some work with Switzerland and Hong Kong.
Wow. So what do you harness through all these different experiences? You've gotten to live and work and study in all over the world, different cultures, different types of people, different work-life balance and habits. How
Yeah.
do we come out on the other end? What are some of your insights as we are a much more globalized world than we've ever been? What are some of the key takeaways that you take with this diversification?
Yeah, I think lots of things. So I think, having the opportunity to see those different types of ways of working in the kind of corporate setting versus the way of life and people's preferences around that. I think in Asia, it's really popular. People where I was in Singapore would often get takeaway dinners and there's really good food available from the food courts and things like that. Whereas here in London, my colleagues are cooking themselves and buying groceries on the way home from work. So that's one difference. I think secondly, I think I took away a appreciation for culture, for nuances, for the way people are operating, and then how that plays into team dynamics as well. So, for example, like a concept like FaceTime, or even just being able to suggest ideas up the hierarchy to the boss, and having those ideas acted on in a way that you feel that your ideas are welcomed and can be delivered on.
Right. So as you transition from place to place, you have to adapt, right? And today, I'm looking at myself and all my friends. We have to move all the time, and I think this adaptation can be either quite challenging or quite helpful. I actually just had a beautiful episode with somebody who's working on a social platform to help employees as they relocate to adapt. So how was the adaptation for you? What did you find most helpful as you adapted both business wise but also personally to all these different locations?
That was a good question. I think for me, working in those different locations, I think it was my own mindset. It's that mindset that, I'm going to figure this out and you've been thrown at the deep end. You have to make new friends, you have to build new communities and also then, figure out your new job. So I think for me, it was that open-mindedness, and then also, just the response of the people around you. Always, when I went to a new country, somebody else would introduce me to their friends, and that would really help me to then make more friends and things like that. And
Right.
then, professionally, I think what's really helpful also is that being able to translate ideas from one area into another. So being able to see patterns or recognize ideas and concepts and then translate them into other business lines.
Right. So, one of the things that I have to say is that the name of your company, You've Got This, is perhaps the name that I love most out of any company that I've seen so far, because it's just so fun to say You've Got This. I am the
Yeah.
CEO of You've Got This. I want to have that role. What is You've Got This, and why name your company like that?
Yeah, so you've got this. It's a future of work SaaS marketplace platform. What we're doing is connecting small businesses with the expertise and the skills that they need now. And on the other hand, we're connecting professionals, people who've worked in different business areas or want to do something different with their career to those opportunities. So it's anything from 6 months to 6 days to 3 months.
Wow.
And the reason, or the way where this came from, is you've got this idea is that often a lot of people aren't actually in the jobs that they love, and they aren't going through that process of trying enough things to be able to know what it is that they really want to do. And then on top of that, with the environment that we're in, a lot of more people are looking for flexibility, for work-life balance. So to be able to say, I can do this, I can look after my family, I can look after my career at the same time. It's that idea of you've got this.
Unbelievable. So take me back a little bit. Let's imagine, we're just in the early stages and I know nothing about the industry and I want you to tell me what is the pain that you're solving here? Because obviously the world is changing at a drastically faster speed than we've perhaps anticipated, especially in this past 10 months or so. The way that startups get talent, get their things done is very, very different. Obviously everything is remote, but besides that, geography's boundaries are no longer existent in today's world. There's new challenges to adapt to, new challenge and new opportunities to harness. What is the world that we're moving towards? Why do we need a company like You've Got This?
So when I was working in fintech partnerships, so I was meeting lots of founders, lots of new startup businesses who were looking to grow in the financial services sector. One thing I noticed was a lot of teams were made up of founders. They were made up of co-founders, of people who brought a range of skills. But what they were often missing sometimes was that expertise. It was expensive talent, people who knew the industry in and out, or a particular area that they were trying to sell their product into really well, and they weren't able to access that talent locally. So, for example, there are platforms like Upwork, there is Fiverr, but you can't really, at the moment, that idea of somebody being very much part of your team and very much a team member providing that expertise that you and your team members don't have currently. That's the basis of what we're doing. When I think about the future of work, I also think that there's a bigger opportunity here to understand this idea of a portfolio career, the side job, the second job, the third job, that in the future, as a professional, somebody with skills will want to kind of allocate their time across different businesses where there's demand and supply. And we're seeing that already in tech talent, for example. Like you don't often, a developer is seen as somebody who can be freelance and work on a number of different projects in a professional way. I think that's going to become much more broad, much more mainstream.
So, what are the challenges that come with that, with this, different work expectation from the employee side? How are the employers going to adhere to this?
Yeah, I think it's a journey that we're on. I don't think it's changing today. But I think what we're helping businesses do is really understand the composition of their teams and helping them think about diversity within their teams. So using the platform as a way of understanding, well, as a business, these are the skills that we have, and these are the ones we don't have. These are the ones that potentially we could look to hire in the future. These are the people that have those skills and are really interested in working with small businesses right now.
Right. So if I'm a small business and let's say that I'm a software business and I have, 10, 15 employees, I'm solving a variety of difficult challenges, what would be a use case where I would come to You've Got This and ask for assistance? What would be some of those use cases?
Yeah, so we enable you to search on skills and sectors. So the idea is that you're looking for somebody potentially with the sector expertise or a particular skill, or the combination of both. And I'm trying to think of, more specifically as to what it would be that the business is solving. But say, for example, it's a specific problem in fintech. It's an anti-money laundering solution. You are trying to sell that to X multinational bank. You really want to understand what the latest ideas and thinking around that are. What things people have tried, what things that they're interested in. So it helps you to get access to that exposure from, say, somebody who's worked in that area but is now left to have children or to look after elderly parents or something like that. You're tapping this pool of talent who isn't necessarily available full time, but can be part of your team and provide that necessary gap fill.
And then that arises some different problems, right? If you're sharing your time among different organizations, you have just to get into the culture and to get into the workflow of a company is difficult, but also I imagine there might be some confusion regarding intellectual property or some, anti-competitive landscape. So how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I think a lot of these, businesses, worry about things like that, and I think that's something that we've very much built into our platforms, like other people have, where you are relying on the person to declare conflicts of interest, and very much be aware that, if this is not suitable, then you don't take on that business. I think it's the same with many industries, that you have to have that level of boundaries between the businesses that you're working on.
And do you find any difficulty for them, for these people that are coming in, these experts that are sharing their time to the different organizations? Do they have problems assimilating to the culture or to keep up with what the company is doing, or is it more, or do you find that it's actually easier than expected?
I think there's a lot of people who are interested in moving from the corporate sector to small businesses, partly because they're looking for meaningful work, they're looking for
Right.
connection, really that sense of belonging, and building the next future of X, Y, Z. I think that's where we're really interested to educate and help people make that transition. And I think, that's one of the things that, we're looking to partner with organizations who understand that skills gap, and can help us really work together to move people from traditional roles to the new economy, the tech economy, and this type of work.
How do you even get to think about this problem? What in your journey led you to think about, the future of work, small businesses, their needs, their problems, and how you can address that?
I think for me, where I was, um, I think where I felt there was a real need for this is when I thought about the gig economy, and I thought about the gig economy following the last financial crisis, and that led to the creation of platforms like Uber and Deliveroo. And where I felt that there was still a gap was in the higher skilled sector. And my assumption or my hypothesis is that will, as we come out of this financial crisis, or as we come out of this recession, um, we'll increasingly move towards higher skilled work in the gig economy.
Interesting. So just to make sure that I understand, because actually I'm a huge fan of the gig economy. I've been using the gig economy since I believe 2014 or late 2013 for my startup back in high school, simply because we needed things done. We didn't have money to hire full-time employees, so we turned to platforms like Freelancer and Upwork. But what I'm hearing from you is that until now, what the trend has been is that you've had, in the gig economy primarily, you'd had people that are not necessarily in the highest skilled positions, that need years of academia and expertise to get to the level where they can contribute from their sector. And now what you're imagining in your thesis is that as we transition more to the future of work, we're going to have more higher skilled workers in the gig economy. Potentially, you're going to have more PhDs in the gig economy. You're going to have more, NLP experts and computer vision experts and that sort of stuff, right?
Right. Yeah.
Interesting. So, what are the benefits really for the person joining the gig economy to leave, let's say, a company like Microsoft, right, or leave, a high-paying job at Boeing to now go and be part of the gig economy and take part in, three, four small businesses at a time?
So there's a few different parts to that. Let me unpack it a little bit. So the first thing is, in the past, having one employer and having a full-time employment contract meant it was some level of risk aversion, right? It was job security. Now, in the future, I think, putting all your eggs in one basket or one business may actually be more risky. And I
Hmm.
think that's something which I think is really interesting to try and understand a bit more. So does it make sense for me in the longer term to build up a wider set of experiences and skills and opportunities and networks by working across multiple businesses, or does it make more sense for me to work in one job with one boss, with one team? Which one is going to grow me and make me more, um, I don't know, flexible, adaptable, more resilient to a downturn, and to this kind of future of more best place for the future of work? And then the second thing is, I think it's going to be a gradual process. I don't think many people, with the very high paying jobs, particularly in something like Microsoft, are going to be interested in necessarily making that jump or that leap on day one. And there's this idea that, maybe I can do it one day a week, maybe I can do it one day in a month, and start to build those relationships with businesses where I'm using my knowledge and skills to pass on knowledge and ideas and information separately, in different business verticals. So I wouldn't expect it to be a competitor business. I'd expect it to be a different industry or slightly different um, problem that the small business is facing. But this idea that we can use that knowledge, and we can use that underutilized capacity within our workforce.
I think that one of the things that I'm thinking towards, in another episode, we were talking about the efficiency of a worker, and I think that one thing that Microsoft, I believe, tried out this year was a 3-day work week or 4-day work week, and they actually found an increase in productivity with fewer hours of hands-on work. And I think that there's an interesting analogy to be made here, and a speculation to be made here that when we have a small amount of time, or when we have a problem we have to solve, if you give me an hour to solve it, or you give me 2 hours to solve it, I'll probably get it done in both time frames. If it's the 2 hours, I'll stretch it out longer. And I see that for myself too. When I allow myself, 7 hours to do something, I'll do it in 7 hours. If I have 1 hour, I'll do it in 1 hour, and it'll be done almost at the same level. My imagination, and what I think that you're right here in speculating, is that you give somebody who's highly skilled at something, you allow them to spend their time working on 3 different meaningful problems, they'll still manage to solve all three. Whereas if they were only working on one, they would solve that one in the same capacity,
Right.
which I think is very interesting.
Yeah.
I think that's actually a very interesting idea, and I look forward to seeing where it goes forward. Take me back a little bit to the 2008 recession, because you mentioned that gave room and rise to part of the gig economy. I'd love for you to expand on that a little bit, because I was too young back then to know economics and follow the news. So please tell me a little bit about what happened over there.
I think, and I don't know the details in a lot of detail, but one of the things that I myself have understood, is from founders like Will Shu and Leah Sullivan from TaskRabbit, is that these platforms were very much built around that time,
Huh.
when they were able to tap into the supply of people who wanted to work in a more flexible way, in order to make up lost income and to find work. And I think what we're seeing now, if you translate that forward, is, yes, there are a lot of people who have been working in professional services, in banking, consulting, finance, who are now looking for work and have a bit of extra time. And one of the things, with furlough, for example, is that you're not supposed to be working with your business. So a lot of people are looking to start building those relationships. They're looking to protect themselves from the downside risk of losing their jobs as well. And if they have lost their job, then they're looking for new opportunities, either short term or long term.
That makes a lot of sense. So, as an entrepreneur, you're looking at you've got this. What's your plan of growth? What is sort of the strategy that you're bringing to the table as you're thinking to bring this to market, and potentially have every small business work with you?
Yeah, so we're starting local in the sense that we're very much focused on the UK market initially. We think the US is our next best market after that. We're starting with small businesses. We think the SME market is the right place for us right now. And as we expand, I think one of the things we're going to be doing next year is using capital to invest in building our team, to test new ideas, to put things out there and see how businesses respond, and very much in the agile kind of development style that you mentioned.
Right. And what's been the reception so far from those working with you, and getting to know about what you're doing here?
We've had a fantastic response. I think a lot of people are interested in the SaaS idea, where they can come to the marketplace and search and book as many people as they want within a certain band. I think there's definitely more that we can be doing to understand their needs around certain types of skills and skills gaps that a lot of businesses face. So we're looking for patterns in the searches that people are doing.
Right. And the decision to start off locally in the UK, is that primarily because the team is located in the UK, or because there's an interesting market theory of what's going on there? What was sort of the strategy of where to start the piloting?
Yeah, I think largely because we have a better understanding of this market. But I think, the principles on which we're applying are very much global, and with an increasingly remote workforce, that's something that we want to really kind of play into a lot, within the future of work.
Right. One of the things that I'm assuming is that, especially as 2021 will roll out, remote work and the geographical barriers are going to dramatically decrease. And it doesn't really matter if the small business is located in the US, UK, Israel, or Egypt. The same talent can be applied across the world. Right now, I know that I'm working, I have the opportunity to work with teams literally all over the world. And it doesn't really matter where the headquarters are or where each person is, as long as you're aligned to some degree to time zones. But I completely agree. Sujata, I want to thank you for being so generous with your time. It's been really fantastic, and I loved hearing about you've got this and your different journeys and your adaptations to the different cultures that you've gotten to experience. And I'd love to end with my favorite question, which is 3 words that you would use to describe yourself.
Okay, so I'm going to give it a go. I'd say fun, collaborative, and an innovator.
Fun, collaborative, and an innovator. Sujata, thank you very, very much. This was wonderful. And best of luck with You've Got This, and stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you so much. Great talking to you, Michael.
Take care.